Hey guys, thanks again for joining me here at Flirt. Um, Today I wanted to discuss some of the consequences of activism. This is a topic that has been affecting me personally over the past month or so, particularly in the area of employment. This has been going on since I made the decision not to return to additional, and I've found that I'm having a really hard time finding alternate employment. Um, and I'm aware that my experience is not unique by any means, especially for those who are more publicly involved in the causes that they're passionate about. And I just wanted to briefly mention that I did know this would be an issue. Um, when I was offered my job back at Additional, I declined because it didn't feel right to return to a company that not only had fired me for voicing my opinion, but was also facing some pretty incredible public backlash for their decisions. Um, and it also felt disingenuous because of the work that I had started doing. And finally, I knew that it would be incredibly uncomfortable for me and the people that I would be working with if I were to return back to Additional, especially in that particular location. So I knew it would be difficult to find a job, but knowing and doing are two completely different things. And for me, the publicity has died down, but if you Google my name, the first two pages are all media stories with my face on them, detailing exactly what happened and why I was fired from my last job. Um, so if there's employers who are Googling my name, that's all they're going to see. And I'm also up against an economy that has been slowly sinking since early this year, as well as about 1,000 other unemployed individuals from Fort McMurray and surrounding area who have been displaced from their homes and are probably more qualified and more deserving than I am of potential job openings. Um, that being said, it still sucks, especially because I find that I'm being forced to make a choice between raising awareness about an issue that I feel passionate about or finding a job. And I have to wonder why should there be a choice? Why can't I find a happy medium? And part of the reason for that is fact as activism is not a popular cause, nor is it a well-paying cause. And this is especially true for many of the projects that I'm working on, which are being done so on a voluntary basis, including my work here at Flirt. And while it would be amazing to find a position that allows me to continue working on these issues, or at least supports me in voicing my take on these issues, I know that in this day and age, and especially here in Edmonton, it's simply not a reality. Um, and besides not being able to find employment, there are other consequences of activism, most of which I have been lucky enough to avoid experiencing. Um, and I think one of the biggest ones, especially for someone who has ever attended a protest, is the very real risk of being arrested or fined, even if you're protesting peacefully and legally. Um, if the police really want to, they'll find a way to get you in handcuffs. There's also the danger of being harmed by people who might not share your views, and this is something that I have experienced, especially in the case of a particular gentleman who took it upon himself to make some pretty crude comments about mine and my girlfriend's sex life. Um, and that's also something that people who are advocating for, say, stronger sexual assault laws and policies that protect victims of assault will also experience. There's a lot of death threats and harm that comes to them. And in turn, that also affects the people in their life. And that's something that I think people also need to consider before they start doing activism work. For example, my partner and I live together, and since I've been, only working 2 nights a week, she's been footing the bill for a lot of our daily expenses. And unfortunately, this is a direct consequence of my involvement in fat activism in terms of how it affects my employment status. Um, I will say that there are probably other reasons why I'm not getting these positions, such as the fact that I don't have a driver's license, or the fact that a lot of my experience is in a very particular industry that currently is not hiring. Um, but for the most part, my work in fat activism is something that I am more concerned about because I feel that it has a stronger effect on the outcomes of my job interviews or my applications. And while my girlfriend is incredibly supportive of me, I know that it's really not fair for her to have been placed in this position, because she shouldn't be the only one who's paying bills in our house. And I think it begs the question of what kind of decisions are you asking the people in your life to make based on your work, as well as is this something that they feel comfortable doing? Do they understand why you feel strongly about this issue? And are they willing to support you in continuing your work? Um, on a more, on a more personal note, are you potentially putting someone you love in danger if you speak out? And while in my experience, fat activists don't necessarily face this kind of issue, I know that a lot of people who are speaking out against more volatile issues such as police brutality, they may have had to face a situation like this before, especially if you look at the people of Ferguson who, many of them, suffered physical injury at the hands of counter protesters and police. They also, a lot of them had their property stolen or vandalized, and public services were shut down because of this. And unfortunately, the majority of the media coverage on that has been that the protesters themselves are at fault because they shouldn't be protesting in the first place. And it's something that I've also experienced in terms of media coverage. I've had a lot of people, especially in the comment section of news stories, which I know I shouldn't be reading, but I simply can't help myself. A lot of people have made a lot of points, and especially pointing a lot of fingers at me, saying that I shouldn't be surprised that I can't find a job, and I'm not, and they're right. But it also ignores the reality that I made a statement about something that affects me as a person and affects a lot of people that I know and love, and the recipient of that statement should not be discounted from the equation. Um, and unfortunately, that's something a lot of activists have to face, and that they're blamed for the situation that they find themselves in when they dare speak out. And that may be a sign of a larger societal, macro level problem that I won't get into now. But I think it's very important to remember that you're not only affecting yourself when you decide to take up activism, you're also affecting the people in your life. Um, that being said, though, don't take this as me telling you not to become an activist. Because getting involved for me has been such a wonderful experience. I've really grown as a person. I've met some really incredible people, and I've gotten the opportunity to work on projects, some of which are very personal to the people who began those projects, and for them to have invited me on this journey with them has been such an honor and a privilege, and I really appreciate it. Um, but I do encourage you and anyone else who's thinking of, becoming more public in your activism work, or if you're thinking of getting in a more public role for the causes you believe in, I do encourage you to think critically about whether or not this is something that you can, justify the effects that it has on your life as well as the people around you, as well as are you prepared to deal with the consequences of something like my situation happening, where your image is now one of controversy. And, in my specific case, I know if I were an employer, I'd be pretty uncomfortable about hiring me because they don't know if something like this will happen with them. Um, so I think that just about covers it. On a related note, Amanda Van Slyke, the editor-in-chief of Flirt, has begun accepting donations on my behalf to help me pay my bills while I find another job. Um, I've had a lot of people message me about this. I did not ask Amanda to do that. She did it of her own accord. Um, we began talking and she had asked me how I was doing, and I simply said, I'm having a hard time finding a job and it sucks because I have all these bills. And this was something that she took up on her own. So I did not ask her to do this. If you are wanting to donate some money, though, you can email her at amanda@flirtmag.com. I'll put that in the description box below. She also is passing along job opportunities to me, so if you have an opening in the Edmonton area, preferably downtown, but I'm really not picky at this point, you can also email Amanda there. I've opted to not provide my contact information just because in the past I know a lot of people who have taken up these kind of, um, I guess, crowdfunding opportunities have had a lot of backlash, and at this point, I've simply dealt with too much of it to really want to invite that into my inbox. Um, so yeah, if that's something you want to do, please feel free. I'm honestly, I don't expect a lot of people to do that just because I know that we are in a really, really bad recession, and more of people's generosity is going towards the people of Fort McMurray, and rightly so because they're in a lot worse situation than I am. But if that's something you want to do, you can feel free to email Amanda. And as always, feel free to leave a comment below or tweet me. I'll put my handle in the description box. Make sure that you like Flirt on Facebook. The video will be available there as well. And as well, you can feel free to check out my page there too. And I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week. Bye.